Welcome to Tippcast by the Nenagh Guardian. Yes, hello and welcome to Tippcast here. Myself, Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by Nenagh Guardian sports editor Shane Brophy in the middle there. And on the right-hand side of your screens is Toomevara manager Eoin Brislane. Men, how are you doing?
All good, Shane.
Yeah, we've a great weekend of hurling coming up in front of us, whether it's the senior championship, the intermediate, or Sean O'Reen intermediate, junior, and obviously there's been football going on. But Shane, you just brought it up there before we went on live. The Henry Shefflin is in with Galway. What we were talking, like, that took a lot of people by surprise, didn't it?
Oh, gee, sure. I think it caught everybody by surprise. I don't think, I'd say bar maybe the Galway chairperson or a small group of people in Galway. Nobody else had it really until I think you got wind of it Wednesday afternoon. I think it's a great appointment for Galway and a great appointment for Shefflin, and I think it's Henry, I suppose, putting his foot out there for intercounty experience, but I also think it's Henry more or less putting a bit of pressure on the Kilkenny County Board. I'm going to Galway. If I do well, it'll be at your expense, and you haven't had the bravery maybe to talk to Brian about when he might be moving on. And if we go well, you might have to end up forcing him out. So I just think it's as a move for Henry, but for short term or long term, I just think he's thought this one out very well.
Yeah, that's the juicy little story behind the story, the way you're going there, or yeah. One of the many angles you could look at. Eoin, what did you make of this story, and how do you think it will go for Henry?
Listen, it's great, isn't it? It's after kind of putting the focus back onto the Leinster Championship. The Leinster Championship was kind of dying a death there behind the Munster. So now I think everybody can't wait for Galway versus Kilkenny. I think it's down in Galway next year, so that's going to really be an interesting game. See the two boys in the sideline, but come here, yeah, there's a whole lot of things you can look at there as regards the whole Brian Cody and County Board, and like there was a lot of unrest there a couple of years ago after Ireland. Should he go? Colin Fennelly wasn't going back with him. Was there a fallout there? Was there or wasn't there? How much unrest is in the camp there? And like, is his time done? You know, and then he's still producing like a team that they're still working very hard. And there's no real, I take TJ over, I suppose. There's no real stars on that team. He's getting the most out of him. And would Henry do much more with him? I don't know. But as regards from a Galway point of view, I think it's a big scalp. I don't think Davy. I think with the whole Davy thing is nearly over for him as regards unless he goes back to Clare, or maybe Dublin might take him. But Galway, I suppose people would say, listen, he's too controversial. It's too much of a short-term gig. Davy finicky enough down there. Like, so I couldn't see it. I could never see that happen. I thought Micheál Donoghue would have went back in. I thought that was the obvious choice. But no, listen, it's brilliant, isn't it? It's like great for the game.
Yeah, and then like myself and Shane talked about this before, but obviously we didn't have you on that week going. But the whole notion next year that, you know, most people wish Liam Cahill obviously very, very well with Waterford, unless he's coming up against Tipperary. But if he wins something next year at Tipperary's expense, all of a sudden, you know, people won't be too happy. And it might be the same with Henry. Everyone in Kilkenny loves him, wishes him well. But next year, let's say there's a poisonous Leinster final and Henry's team comes out on top. It might change perceptions, you know, the whole sheen might drop just ever so slightly.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, well, come here. When you go into management, you're damned you do and damned if you don't. Like, you know what I mean? And in fairness, what managerial experience has Henry, right? He took on an extraordinary good Kilkenny Ballyhale Shamrocks team, won 2 Club All-Irelands. That's no mean feat by any means, but like, they are an extraordinary group. He's currently with Thomastown and Kilkenny, again a team that's been knocking on the door in the intermediate championship in Kilkenny for the last 2 or 3 years. He should get them over the line. But the big thing is going to be Galway. Like, this is really going head first in. Like, do you know what I mean? And as I say, Galway. Like, listen, all the big counties like Tipp, Galway, they all feel. Listen, it's all Ireland or nothing, really, isn't it? Like, if he wins the Leinster, yeah, grand. Like, it wouldn't be really a joyous occasion down in Galway, but if he wins in All Ireland, yeah, 100%. And then, of course, he'll be Kilkenny lads will be looking over him and going, he's actually could possibly take one away from us there, like, you know. So that's it'll be interesting to see how that goes now. And down there with the likes of Philly Larkin, these boys, the diehards of Kilkenny, saying, I'd love to be talking to them now this week, going, well, what do you think, lads, of Henry going to Kilkenny or going to Galway? Are you delighted? Like, I don't know.
And actually, do you think, one final question on that, Eoin, do you think he should look to get Joe Canning back, or do you think Joe Canning, a lot of miles on the clock, a lot of injuries, he's probably made his own decision anyway?
No, Joe, Joe's done. Joe, I would be going back for Joe. I'd say he's done a lot of service in that. But listen, I think the way the game has gone and the energy that's required, like, to play in the middle of the field, I just don't know. I think Joe has done the right thing. He's called his day and move on, and he left as a legend, and I think leave it at, and he'll come back into the Galway set up maybe as manager or whatever down the road, even though he's saying he's no interest. But in time, give him time. But no, I'd leave it, move on. Like what? How many alarms have they won in minor, like, in the last 5 years?
Yeah,
like, is it 4 in the last 5 years, Shane?
They won
definitely
4 in a row.
three.
Then Cork won the 2 in about 6 weeks. So
yeah.
But
like, surely to God, there's players down there they can dip into, you know. So.
Oh, sorry, no, yeah, they won 5 in a row, and Cork won this year, yeah, and they got to the final and this year in the last exceptional Cork team. So. Yeah,
I think going back for Joe would be like, you know, wouldn't you be, if you were a lad there now that was 19, 20 years of age, kind of going, come on, I'll give me a chance here, like, you know. Like, even look at Nyland there from Clarenbridge, hitting the freeze and that when Joe got injured, he came on and had a super game. Like, he really stepped up. But, like, if you don't give him a chance, they can't step up, you know.
Yeah, it's true point. Shane, any game in particular you're looking forward to in Tipperary this weekend?
I think they're all good, but I suppose the one that stands out for me is Kiladangan and Thurles. Like, it's like, I think both semi-finals are I think they're very, very intriguing. Like, but it's the Kiladangan one for me against Thurles, because Kiladangan are defending champions, but Thurles are the aristocrats. I suppose they've comfortably seen off teams all before them this year, but I think this is the test where this is what we want to see Thurles now against such a, what would you say, I think Kiladangan are a complete team from goalie up to corner forward. What I suppose to say I would look at Kiladangan is they probably don't have a lot of 9 out of 10 players, but they have a lot of 8 out of 10 guys who give 8 out of 10 performances every day to go out, and I think that's the sign of a very, very good team. And I fancy Kiladangan, I really do. I wasn't overly impressed with Thurles against Killenaule. I think if they have lulls against Kiladangan, they'll be punished. And like, there's so many fascinating matchups. Like, and you look at the two Mahers on the Thurles side, but I think pound per pound, Alan Flynn is the best club hurler in the county I've seen this year. He's so consistent at centre back. He's the heartbeat of that Kiladangan team. You have Willie Connors, like Ty Gallagher, I think, had a very, very good championship as well. Brian Malachny came back against Upper Church, and the forward line seemed to move a little better when he was on the team as well. So, like, it's I suppose we'll get I think if Kiladangan win this one, I think we can, even though they're reigning champions, I think always when you beat Thurles, it sort of adds more stature to what you've achieved, and I just think it's a super game on Saturday.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Just looking at the quarterfinal results, Thurles beat Killenaule 219 to 114. They always kind of had them at arm's length in that game. And Kiladangan, even though they started slowly, they kept Upper Church at arm's length also, 121 to 13 points. Owen, what do you think are going to be the big factors in this game between Kiladangan and Thurles?
Okay, so I was just looking at key battles there. Like you were saying, Paul Flynn, you were saying about Alan Flynn there. I think Paul Flynn at 14 hasn't really sparked the way he sparked the National Championship, but he's a guy that Paddy will have his hands full. Do you know what I mean? He's probably as good a club hurler forward out there as we've seen in the last number of years. Then I actually think, from a Kiladangan point of view, Joe Gallagher is their go-to man. If you've seen last year, the game was over, ball poked out, Joe caught it, thrown it out to Brian Malachny, game over. Joe always seems to kind of, he's whenever need a puck out one or a dirty ball one, he's kind of that man that, like Ronan again, that like Paddy and Ronan and Paul Flynn and Joe Gallagher, if Thurles to win this game, need to win them two battles. It's as simple as that. Now, you'd be saying, listen, with the two boys, that they should, but that's not going to be easy on either of them. Sean Hayes is a guy that really stepped up this year. I've been very impressed, and I'd like to see him. I think he'll progress onto the Tipp Senior panel this year. He's a good guy. I suppose David Carr will pick him up. But then middle of the field, will Thurles go a man marking job and Willie Connors? Will put Mikey Cahill on him and say, listen, just follow him all day, take him out of the game. I kind of They've Stephen Cahill there. I actually think David Sweeney will come back in 6, and I think Alan Flynn will go wing forward and probably pick up Aidan McCormack. And I think David Sweeney is going to be okay for the weekend. But it'll be interesting to I just feel that this time of the year it comes down to it's a different game. Like in a matter, as I said to you before, in a matter of a few days, the weather changes. It comes really into winter hurling, and for winter hurling you need ball winners. And I suppose if there is a question mark over Kiladangan, right? And they don't have many like as you said there, Shane, they're extraordinarily even, right? Very balanced team. Like they'll probably go along, and like Dan O'Mara, they'll probably go along and try to hit the inside line with Dan O'Mara, Billy Seymour, Brian Malotny. Like but it's ball winners are looking for, right? And I suppose do Thurles have them? Is my question. Do Thurles have people that in their half forward line that when the pressure's on, to go up with their hand up, catch a high ball and win that dirty ball? Okay, Dennis Maher's inside, Paddy Creedon's inside. That's where I think Kiladangan will come out on top there. If they can win, if they can dominate there in the Kiladangan half back line. Alan Flynn is in top form. David Sweeney is a really good player. Dickie McGrath, they're strong. I agree with you, Shane. I think I'd fancy Kiladangan all the way here. I actually don't think this is the game of the weekend. I think the other game is the game of the weekend. I think Loughmore-Borris-Ileigh is going to be a really, really good game. I think the Borris-Ileigh haven't performed this year at all, and I said to you last day, Shane, on the podcast that I fancy Borris-Ileigh to win the county final, and I'm kind of going, I fancy him to kind of put Mullinahone away kind of easy enough, and they really struggled. And now Kevin Maher's out. Brendan has an injury. I think he's playing. You probably have better insight to that, though, Shane. But he's, by all accounts, it's a knee injury. How bad it is, we don't know. But I just on this game here, the Thurles and Kiladangan game, I actually think Kiladangan will win this game and will win it comfortable enough.
Well, I mean, Shane, one of the things that stood out to me was some of the ball that went in from Killenaule to Rossmore at times allowed Ronan Maher to completely take over the game. And I don't think Kiladangan are going to allow that to happen. And if they play good ball inside, you saw the damage that Conor Hammersley did when he got a bit of ball inside. If good ball goes into Paul Flynn, like Dan O'Mara, I think needs to play an awful lot better than he did the last day against Upperchurch. But into him and, Sean Hayes has been mentioned, he'll probably be in the half forward line and a couple more in there. Like, surely they can do a little bit more damage than Killenaule did.
Oh, I think they can. Like, I think they have a very, very good, solid 6 forwards. I know they have. Well, you mentioned Paul Flynn. I know he hurt a quad in training on Sunday. So, look, I suppose hopefully it's not too bad. Like, if he was compromised in any way, it would blunt Kiladangan a fair bit. And I know they've tended to play him out centre forward a lot of the games this year. I think a lot of his best hurling in 2020 was done at full forward. But I suppose it's what to do with Joe Gallagher. Like, Ronan's going to be at 6, so do you put Joe Gallagher out on the wing, maybe and Billy Seymour on the other wing, and go the puck outs down there instead of topping Ronan Maher, who will... Look, Kiladangan probably just can't go on top of Ronan Maher. You're asking for trouble, and maybe you put a Sean Hayes there and just give him a free roll and get him to pick up ball and take off on those very good solo runs he's such a great stride. He's able to break forward a pace and he can draw defenders and pop the ball off. So definitely, I think Kiladangan have something to consider there about who they play at centre forward and where they play. If they consider moving Joe Gallagher, I think from talking to Brian Lawler yesterday, David Sweeney looks like he's going to be fit, and look, he's captain. He's going to come back into the side in the half back line. So I'd say it does give a bit of flexibility to then put Alan Flynn onto, as you say, Aidan McCormack or whoever. Maybe if Pat Burke starts going to town early on, Alan can go across to him as well. So, but look, I wouldn't underrate Dickie McGrath either. I think he's one of those guys that has to be on Colin Bonner's radar too. He doesn't do an awful lot flash, but he's just a good, solid wing back. I'd agree with you. I think looking at the weather forecast, it's looking like 10 or 11 degrees and a little chilly. So definitely, the question has always been asked about Thurles Sarsfields when the ground starts to slow up, that they tend to find things a little difficult. But look, Thurles Central Stadium is so good at this time of the year, even in these conditions. Like, they're going to enjoy it out there. I just think, for me, it comes down to, Shane, I don't agree, it's who do you trust more at this stage? And look, Kiladangan have only lost one match since 2019, and that was the 2019 county final. Like, since the start of 2019, like that, they're so consistent, and like they've shown nothing so far to say they are. So would you say they're going to hit a wall at this stage? I think Thurles have the higher ceiling, but I still think they have some way to go, maybe in terms of development. I just think Kiladangan are probably a team that you can trust more about what you're going to get from them at this stage.
Wouldn't you also say that Kiladangan are very good at seeing through tight games? That's something that they've done a nice bit in the last couple of years. So Ronan Maher is the strength of the Thurles team. I think we'd probably all largely agree with that. They've plenty of scorers, but like he's the key man there at 6. So how do you try and hammer the hammer here? I presume if you go 50-50 ball on top of him, Kiladangan are going to get destroyed. But like, do you put someone like Sean Hayes there? Can that give you an edge? And then also, Mickey Cahill will probably be trying to sweep around the midfield area in front of him. But does midfield actually suit him? Like, he's such a brilliant player over the years, but I'm not 100% sure if midfield is suiting him.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I just go back to what I think Kiladangan will do. I think Kiladangan will just bring their two wing forwards out the field again and dry out their 2 wing backs and try and target them 2 cornerbacks with Danamara. Because like Danamara he's a real handful. Like, do you know what I mean? He's 6 foot 5 or 6 is he? I don't know. Like, he's a real handful. And Brian Lott in the other corner. So I actually think they'll try and then if the wing back doesn't follow Sean Hayes, like, the one thing that Kiladangan have is, and people probably don't speak about enough, is that they have an exceptional keeper now. He's their number 1 goalkeeper in Tipperary, but he can go short, medium, and long, and like he had the experience last year, right? He could say he made a mistake because it was at the 65 for the last puck of the game, but then the actual last, he was clever enough to have the ball ready to go for the last goal. He's a really sharp keeper. He knows when to speed it up. He knows when to slow it down. He also has Dara Egan on his ear there as well. That's advising as well. That's what I think they'll do. I think they'll actually pull out 2 wing backs and go long, and then if they don't, then go hit like Billy Seymour, hit Sean Hayes. But back to Stephen Cahill, Willie Connors, he'll have that's not Mikey Cahill's best position by a long shot. I think that's probably a weakness in their line in the middle of the field. Ty Gallagher and Willie Connors should definitely have the legs there in the middle of the field to link both halfback and midfield there, and Willie's the type of player now that I actually think that he'll actually thrive in this kind of weather. I think it'll suit him a lot more even. Do you know what I mean? I think that I'm expecting a big game out of Willie Connors. Like, but no, listen, as I said to you, I just can't see Thurles winning them. I'm totally wrong here. I just look at the group to come out of, and McCarthy themselves and Upper Church and that, and Drum and like. I don't know, have they been tested? Like, you know, Killenaule, we played Killenaule and they weren't impressive. Like, we bet me a pint, but like I wasn't impressed by Killenaule that day. I didn't think they had much energy. I didn't think, do you know what I mean? So I'm kind of going, right, okay, then you could say, right, Kiladangan, they struggled over JK Brackens. But then they wouldn't be a pint against Loughmore in the first game. They won by a couple of pints against Killenaule in the North final. And again last year, to me, they won a county final in second gear. Like, they didn't really set the place alight, and they still won a county final. And this year, they're coasting through a championship in second, and you're kind of waiting for them to kick on and put in that really good performance. But like what you were saying, what you were saying there, they don't have maybe 9 out of 10 players or 10 out of 10 players really. But as you said, they really have a really strong, balanced crew. And like Danamara was very quiet last day. He could score 2 goals in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, he's a big player, Danamara.
He
tends to pop up with a goal or 2 when you don't expect it.
Do you know? And you can go out with the best laid plan and say, right, let's man mark Sean Hayes and let's man mark Billy Seymour. Next thing, Dan is doing reconcile, or Paul Flynn is going. Now, if Paul Flynn is out, he's going to be a massive loss. But Joe Gallagher, I can't see Joe Gallagher leaving 11. I think he's experienced. I think if I was Kiladangan, I'd be saying, right, Joe, if we can break even here at Ronan Maher, you've a huge job done. Huge job done. Do you know? I think he dominates. You know.
Yeah, I think we all seem to be leaning towards Kiladangan a little bit here, like, because I don't feel that they've any player playing in a position that seems like they're out of position. Like the whole way, the spine through the team, to me, it all makes sense. So just before we move on from this, Shane, we'll just do predictions. You going for Kiladangan? I am.
Yeah, I am. I suppose the only potential weakness I think Kiladangan may have, and it's only a concern, is that the size of Paddy Creed and maybe against either Darragh Flannery or Fergal Hayes. But look, Fergal is so wily, I wouldn't worry about Fergal will break even with anyone. I think Darragh Flannery, he's a young guy, very, very impressive. But going back to it, I do fancy Kiladangan to get over the line here. I think I would maybe 3 or 4 points to spare. I just, as I say, I can. They've earned my trust. Thurles probably still have a small bit of a way to go before we know how good they are.
Yeah. Final word on that, Eoin?
Yeah, I'm the same. If the only thing is, if Paddy and Ronan, if they do start going long and the Thurles backs do start getting on top, then Kiladangan will be in trouble. But other than that, I can't see. I just really fancy Kiladangan.
Okay, so that's the three of us giving the nod to Kiladangan, but I'm sure we all feel it'll be just a puck of a ball in it. The other semi-final then is going to be Borris-Ileigh against Loughmore. Just reflecting on the quarterfinals, like John McGrath scoring 4-6, 4-5 of that in the first half. They beat Killenaule McDonough's 4-15 to 21 points. And Borris-Ileigh certainly didn't have it all their own way against Mullinahone. Went to extra time, 124 to 219. Obviously, there was a bit of a cost there with Kevin Maher getting red carded, so he's out of this game. Brendan Maher got injured, so it remains to be seen if he plays or not. And even if he does play, is he 100% right? Because I'm not sure he'd necessarily been showing his form of old this year, so maybe there were injuries. I'm not entirely sure, but he hadn't been taking over games the way he had been doing. But Eoin, you see this as the game of the weekend.
Yeah.
Why this game?
Because I think there are two teams that are kind of similar in ways that are. As I said to you earlier, I think that when you get into this time of year, it's about ball winners. And the one thing about Borris-Ileigh is they have ball winners, and so do a lot more. I was looking at some key battles there, and there's really some juicy stuff there now. Conor Kenny and Joey Hennessy, I think that'll be a real battle. Jerry Kelly, does John Maher pick him up? Brian McGrath, Nye Kenny. Nye Kenny was the difference the last day, and I suppose a bit like Kiladangan. Jerry and Conor were quiet the last day, and they could go to town the next day, and Nye Kenny mightn't puck a ball. And Dan, like what happens with Noel McGrath? Does Dan follow him? Does Brendan sit? John McGrath.
I'd say he'll come back up in a second there.
Yeah, we might be losing him there for a second. Do you want to take up some of that there, Shane?
Yeah, no, it's I think it's a fascinating one with as I say, I'd agree with Eoin in terms of I think they're both pretty evenly balanced. Like they're like there's some very, very good matchups. I suppose we'll come back to Brendan. I was talking to Johnny Kelly on Monday, and it's a knee ligament strain on the knee he injured in 2018. So look, and maybe potentially a bit of cartilage damage. Look, he's not going to be 100%, but it's hard not to think that they're not going to put him out there in some shape or form. Where you place him then is another thing to try and get the most out of him. You're probably maybe you're looking at right wing back rather than midfield, because maybe you don't want him running all over the place, and maybe that sets up and maybe a match up with Liam Tracy. I think Liam Tracy is one guy that Borris-Ileigh have to plan for, because I thought he gave Killenaule awful trouble in the ball winning capacity in the quarter final. Then you look at Kevin Maher. Kevin Maher's out. I assume Tommy Ryan will come back into the middle of the field. I thought he put in a strong shift when he came on as a sub against Mullinahone. So that's probably he's a midfielder, but you're not going like with like there. In terms of John McGrath, who goes on John McGrath? I don't think Kieran Cohen is a fit for him. Does Liam Ryan go on him? Does Seamus Burke go on him? Then you put out on the field, I think Niall, this time of the year, I think it really plays into the two Kenny brothers' hands. Like they're such handfuls, and like Connor's such an efficient scorer. Niall, I just think Niall is so underrated in that team. He causes havoc when he gets the ball, and he looks to take on men, or he looks to lay the ball off. I'd agree with Owen. There's so many juicy matchups in this one in terms of like as Owen said, both of them play a pretty. They like to maybe retreat back and try and create openings in the forward line. I know, Shane, you're not maybe you tend to think Borris-Ileigh are going at it overly direct or something. Johnny Kelly maybe denounced when I was chatting to him this week that we're not we're not overly direct. We like to try and play the ball at times, but there's no doubt, definitely when Dan gets the ball, he likes to. That Dan doesn't tend to see the 15 or 20 yard passes, the good 50, 60 yard ball inside. But we probably do need to be a bit more, how would you say, strategic in how some of those long balls go in. All right.
Yeah, if it's long ball all day, it's advantage Loughmore. Just before you got cut off there, Eoin, I think you were talking about Noel McGrath and how would Borris-Ileigh deal with him? Will he go centre forward and will he get picked up?
Yeah, so like I just wonder, like with Noel McGrath, obviously he's going to drift. So will they put Dan to follow him and leave Brendan sit? Brendan has an injury, so like will they let Brendan sit in that kind of a sweeper role and kind of read the game and kind of that might suit him, and then like go man for man everywhere else and like leave a maybe a cornerback loose in Loughmore, But the other thing then, the other issue then is John McGrath. Like again, Kieran Cohen. I can't imagine them leaving Kieran Cohen. Will put Seamus Burke on him. Maybe they'll start off and see how Kieran gets on him. But like John McGrath is probably the form forward in the championship this year, isn't he? Like he's really. You have John McGrath in the senior, Sean Ryan in the Seamus Ryan. But like I don't know. It's very interesting. The Brendan injury is a concern for Borris-Ileigh, and like losing Kevin Maher as well. That's another double whammy. But I suppose the one thing I'll say is like Loughmore, again, we spoke about last day. They're an incredible team, aren't they? Just stay going. They won the football last week by a point. Like there's no end to them. Like this is any other team to be crying about this and crying about, matches week on week. But they're unbelievable. But I just, for Borris-Ileigh's point of view, they haven't kicked into gear this year. They don't. They played a good game against Rossgrave, the first game of the season. But like after that, you couldn't really say there was any game of note really that performed. That's not to say now is the time to do it. It's knockout hurling in the semi-final, and you're up against Loughmore team. But Borris-Ileigh will fancy themselves to beat Loughmore. There's no question, right? They will, and they won't fear Loughmore. But again. One guy who's back to Loughmore is Lee McGrath, who's a big shove on from last year. That's one key guy. That's a big shove on. And then from Borris-Ileigh, then you have Eddie Ryan, who's shooting his lights out, hitting frees very well, and scoring from play as well consistently. Like so, he's a real good find,
Yeah, I'm interested in seeing where's James Devaney's head at. Like after being taken off against Mullinholm, and not only that, he was never brought back on to try and win the game in extra time. And you think, like a guy as good as he is, and we know he can blow hot and cold. Like if he could be a match winner on Sunday, and Borris-Ileigh probably need him to be a match winner if we're going to get over the line, particularly if with Kevin out and Brendan probably compromised as well. So look, there's no doubt about it. His ability to score wonder goals and maybe, but we're probably not seeing the best of him. But like how Borris-Ileigh penetrate that Loughmore half-back line to be key. Like John Maher, you have Brian McGrath is in an outstanding form, and John Ryan, a good solid right wing back. So, like, do Borris-Ileigh go for three strong men on the three of them and try and go after them in the air, or like do they try and pick one and try and go after them maybe that way? Like I think this is another like the first game. Like there's so many little tactical battles in terms of do you bring the true Kennys and Jerry Kelly out to the half-hour line and go strength for strength and maybe leave the small guys inside? Like, and it'd be interesting to see how both managements figure this one out.
It'd be a surprise to me if Borris-Ileigh changed what they're doing. So I think you've kind of got a clash of two styles here, because Loughmore, with the fact that they're a dual club and they like to look after the ball, I mean, when you're playing that much football, there's no point in driving the ball up the field, and I think that influences how you play football, whereas Borris-Ileigh do let the ball do the work an awful lot. And I can't see it changing just for this game. You don't really change your tactics in the space of 2 weeks. Interesting what you're saying about Brendan. Would they play him as a spare man? Like if he's anywhere right, you can do that. But like as a sweeper for Borris-Ileigh, if you're going to drive every ball to the clouds, then you can actually do that. But if you want to change tack a little bit and run it out from the back a small bit, the sweeper needs to be fully mobile, and you need to be handing it off to maybe Ray McCormick as well and Dan, and telling them to burst through. And then the puck out thing, I think Niall Kenny was very good when he came out to the half-forward line against Mullinholm. Like, he's obviously a big danger inside. So if the puck outs are going to be going long, I can see him going on top of one of those, going into the half-forward line for the puck outs anyway. But then, like, if you're going to be going long on all throughout the game, you can't bring Jerry, Connor, and Niall out to the half forward line and go long on Eddie and JD and whoever else is inside.
Well, if you're going long, what you'd be doing there is you'd be putting Brendan in as a sweeper, and then saying, right, put Jerry and or put Connor and Niall inside, or put Connor in the wing and put Jerry inside, and have one of the small lads running off him, and go and have Brendan then launch it into the square. That you're hitting Connor, you're hitting Niall, and you have a breaking ball coming to JD or something like that, or Eddie Ryan. But listen, the day I think that the day of going long every single time is gone. I don't think teams are doing that as much anymore anyway. But you have to have the option of being able to go to your half back line, go to midfield, go put it in front of your half forward line, and go inside. But the one advantage that Borris-Ileigh have, and this is why I kind of half fancy them to win a county championship, is because they have the physique inside, and in the heat of battle, in conditions that are testing, it's very easy for a back line to get a ball and drive it. Right, and when you're hitting the ball down the neck of Conor Kenny and Niall Kenny and Jerry Kelly, that's actually the ball they like. Do you know what I mean? It's coming out of the clouds, like running out to the side and try to win ball and take their man on. They're at their most dangerous, and the ball's coming out of the clouds. They're in front of goal. They're 1-on-1. That's when they're at their dangerous, at their most dangerous. And if you can get the likes of JD's head back in the game and getting him running off the likes of Niall and Conor, then he's a real danger man. Or even what he could be just doing is running off to the side and creating that space, leaving the one-on-one battle in the edge of the square with Niall or Conor. Like, the last thing you want is, as I said to you, is Niall or Conor Kenny inside on the edge of the square, 1-on-1 with Joe Hennessy. Like, he's a good, solid, honest full back, but like, these boys are experienced now. This Borris team has been in an Ireland Club final, like, so they've been around the block, you know.
Yeah, and Shane, then some of the matchups I think that we're going to see is probably Liam Tracy. I can see him if he's inside against Kieran Cohen, and I'd be guessing Seamus Burke will pick up John McGrath, and see how it goes early on. But like, if you're Loughmore and you're looking at this Borris-Ileigh team, where are you thinking we can get a bit of joy here?
So, in fairness, there's not too many weaknesses in the Borris-Ileigh team. I'll give them that. They're a very, you think you're out Kevin Matter and potentially without Brendan, but like the strong guys to come in, like Tommy Ryan potentially to come in, like Paddy Stapleton hasn't got much time. Your own brother. Look, they used the North Championship to blood players. Cormac Boyle, Aaron Rabique got time. Jody Harkin's a good solid guy to come in. So like they have 20. Arguably, they probably have the deepest panel of the four teams that are left. Like, probably more players that have been exposed to senior hurling this year. Whether it stands to them, if they get through this weekend, it'll be full proof that it stands to them, and like that they'd be very, very hard to beat if they got to another county final. Weaknesses, to be honest, I don't see too many in the Borris-Ileigh. A lot like Kiladangan, they're very, very even. Like, I like their. I guess maybe would Loughmore maybe see a Kieran Cohen maybe start an Evan Sweeney or a Liam McGrath on him and maybe try to drag him out from full forward instead of maybe going to Liam Tracy, maybe go with a guy with legs and maybe try and plant low ball in front of him, because maybe that's a potential weakness. But after that, there isn't too many, like from what I can see in the Borris-Ileigh team.
Yeah, Eoin, make your prediction there and why.
Oh, tricky one.
I do.
This is a tricky one now. I suppose on form you have to go Loughmore, because like, I know I'm talking about Borris-Ileigh, like fancying for the county final and that, but again, they disappointed me last day against Mullinahone. I thought they'd do, and I'm concerned now about Kevin Maher gone, and concerned about Brendan's injury. And then you look at Loughmore, like, they're in the county final last year. This year they're unlucky to lose to Kiladangan and again, be a point in the first game. Like, they got disposed of Killenaule relatively easily last day. Like, I know there was 10 points in at half time. I know Killenaule ended up losing by 5 or 6 points in the end, but they never really seemed to be under pressure, did they? Like, in any part of that game, really, it was like after 20 minutes that full control of that game and kind of kept them at arm's length for the rest of the game. So, yeah, it's a tricky one, but I'm going to say Loughmore. Let's go Loughmore.
Yeah. Shane?
Yeah, I'm going Loughmore too. I suppose the Kevin and Brendan situation, and then you can't ignore maybe the form guide through Killenaule. Borris-Ileigh have lost twice to Killenaule, who lost to Loughmore. So that's 1-2. And I don't think you can underestimate if Kiladangan win on Saturday and Loughmore know that Kiladangan are waiting in the final, chance maybe to get one back for the year before. You can't say that maybe won't fire up a couple of more Loughmore players to give a little more on the day. So I fancy Loughmore to get through to another final.
Mick Dempsey was a nice acquisition to Loughmore as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people
hurling and football. Hurling and football.
Yeah, without doubt. I'm gonna look. I have to say Borris-Ileigh, even though Everton is suggesting Loughmore. I think everyone will forgive me if I just say let the heart rule the head here and say Borris-Ileigh. I wouldn't be let back into the place if I didn't. We'll jump on to the Seamus O'Reen Cup semi-finals this weekend. Obviously, there's two of them. We'll start off with Killenaule against St Mary's here. Have Killenaule recovered from a fairly heavy defeat the last day or in the preliminary quarter final, Shane, against Loughmore?
To be honest, I don't think their heads was really ever in the game against Loughmore. Like, I know it was a preliminary quarter final, but I suppose realistically, if Killenaule put all their eggs into one basket that night and won, were they going to win a Dan Breen championship? Probably not. Like, I think their focus was winning a Seamus O'Reen and getting up to Dan Breen proper next year. They haven't been convincing. Like, I suppose maybe the one game maybe where I thought they were vulnerable, like, was against Gortnahoe, where they had to win the game to finish top of the group, and they won it convincingly. And that was a Gortnahoe team who were going pretty well. But then against Kiladangan, won by 6 points, but made hard work of it too. So, but then you look, this is an all-South derby. Like, these matches can take on a life of their own. And Killenaule have had the Indian sign over St Mary's over the last few years, but Mary's are closing the gap. I saw Mary's against Laura in the first round of the championship. I was impressed enough with them. Like, a very, very solid group, very even, very, very mobile as well. They won a very, very good quarter final against Thurles Sarsfields. I thought Thurles would take beating in the championship, their second team. I don't know. I'm giving a cautious nod to St Mary's here. Just maybe their greater mobility. I know you could say Killenaule have the Indian sign over, but Killenaule just haven't impressed me this year. They haven't. Okay, if Killenaule find the performance we haven't seen from them so far this year, I think they'll win. But I think maybe St Mary's have shown a greater consistency of performance so far. And look, they've come through. They've beaten Thurles, they've beaten Cashel, they've beaten some good teams along the way. And I just fancy maybe Mary's to share this one.
Yeah, they've had some of that minor success the last few years. Obviously, James Kennedy's a key man. But looking at the Killenaule team, I wonder why they're not doing a little bit better. The Feehan's in there. Killenaule Dwyer has the county experience. Joe Dwyer does. Paddy Codd, obviously Bubbles as well. So there should be talent there.
Oh, yeah. So on paper, they look like their team that should be walking this Seamus O'Reen, really. And the other bit of form to give you is that they won the South final, bet Mullinahone. Look at Mullinahone done. So, it's obviously there. They're a team they're very hot and cold on. It's hard to understand. On paper, you're saying they're a top 16 team, and they'd be able to work away at the top table. But I say, I don't know. It's I actually fancy Killenaule here purely on names, and I'm based that they bet Mullinahone in the South final, and that. And they haven't really sparked in their group, but are they a team that do they feel they're better than they are? Do they feel that they need to be a knockout? Will they spark into gear now and kick on? I say Kieran Bergen won the last day. Bubbles, Jimmy Feeney, Joey Dwyer, Killian Dwyer, Kieran Dwyer 9 points the last day, 4 from frees, one side and these are really good hurlers. But then St Mary's are coming. They're in an under-19 final against the Sars there only a few weeks ago. Seamus Kennedy 3 points last day. Sean Kennedy 11 points. Sammy Ryan, they're coming. As you say, Shane, they have a kind of an Indian sign over them. I can see St Mary's passing out Killenaule in the next couple of years. If this is their time, I'm not sure. I still fancy Killenaule, I suppose, for the weekend.
And Shane, then if we're talking about big names, looking at the Cashel King Cormac's team, including some of the players they got in this year, I'm just looking through their team sheet from the Clonakilty win, which they won by just a point. Aaron Brown, Owen Connolly, who was seen in the Tipp senior panel, Ger Brown, who obviously has been there, Devin Ryan O'Dwyer is back this year. So, in terms of names, they'd have them over Templederry.
They do, but they're young. and they're raw, and they don't have the experience yet, and they're still trying to gel those 5 players into that team. And look, they've done very, very well to get to this stage. But look, if I was Cashel, I'd be concerned. Like they had more talent, they have more talent than Clonakilty, but yet with 10 minutes to go, they found themselves 5 points down in the quarter final. Look, and in fairness, look, they dug it out well to come from behind to win. But if they find themselves in the same position against Templederry, or they're in that same level of performance for the first 45 minutes, they'll get blown away. I think Templederry, look, this is where Templederry have tended to come unstuck, but the fact that Templederry blew Gortnahu away in the quarter final suggests, okay, maybe there's something different in this crew. Maybe that question mark we had over them in knockout stages might be gone. Look, and this is a Templederry team who scored 328 without Christy Coughlin, without Brian Stapleton. Like, just there seems to be something more energy. There seems to be something new. And look, and then they have probably outs. I'd love to have seen Templederry. I suppose we did see Templederry against the Senior A team against Borris-Ileigh, the Blue Way, but how Sean Ryan would have gone in a Senior A championship with the scores he's putting up at Senior B level this year, not so last year. Would have seen him a few times over the last few years. A fantastic forward. I just think he could be one of those late bloomers we might see going to have a great career with Tipp, but definitely at club level he's lighting it up. And look, we've been caught out before with Templederry thinking that win semi-finals and they've lost them. I think the Burgess won 3 years ago springs to mind, but I just think maybe that the disappointment of losing semi-finals before might be enough to spur them over the line. I just think they've probably too much experience maybe for Cashel, who have a lot of big names, but I just think maybe they're still a little young and a little raw.
Yeah, Eoin, you'd obviously know Templederry very well. Just reflecting on their scoreline at 328 against Gortnahu the last day out. Matthew Hogan scored 2-2. Gar Ryan scored 4 points. Sean Ryan 5 points off from play. I think Adrian Ryan 5 as well. How good are some of these players, and what's the spirit like with those boys from your experience with them?
Yeah, this is a great bunch. I was there for 2 years and really enjoyed it. Like when you go back there to our first year, we had Borris-Ileigh. We were 5 points up with 3 minutes to go in an North semi-final, and I had him on the rack. And that day we're missing Dara Carey and still missing and missing Paulie Ryan. And I suppose the one failing they have in Templederry is that they're very tight in numbers, right? And when you lose a key player like Christy Coughlin or Brian Stapleton, there isn't, the depth isn't there. It's as simple as that. You have Tom's on a full outfit, you have Tom Stapleton, Brian Stapleton, Christy Coughlin in the back line. Then you show up the field, you Garrod Ryan, Adrian Ryan, Aina Murray, Sean Ryan. These are all Dara Carey. These are all senior hurlers, proper players, and have all played inter-county at some level or another. And real honest guys, really good to train, real country lads that just love their club but just listen. This is the thing about the Seamus Arena, and this is the beauty of the championship now. If you go down, there's no guarantee you're coming back. It's so difficult to get out of there. And against that time, they were talking about Burgess there, 3 or 4 years ago. Look, it's Burgess are back in the predicament now. Again, they're going it's if you go back down there, it's not simple. And the thing about it is that with Templederry, I suppose is there's a question mark, right? Can they get over the line? They're well capable of beating Cashel. There's no question about it. There's a big question mark over Cashel. I would thought Cashel would have beaten Clonakilty well. It's only beaten by a point. Obviously, they're still integrating the guys from that came in this year into the team. Are they a team? At the end of the day, when you get to this stage of a championship, you have to look around the dressing room, look around your huddle, and say you have to trust each other, and you have to have each other's back, and you have to be all going to one direction. You have to be, and all them little percentages matter. But listen, I fancy Templederry here. I think it's the championship is between Templederry and Killenaule, and if Templederry can if they can. Okay, keep injury free. Christy is a huge loss because Christy Coughlin has been as steady a defender in Tipperary for the last 10, 12 years. I mean, he's a super guy, super player. But again, there's a question mark there. My heart tells and my head tells me Templederry, but in saying that, there is a good bit of quality in the Cashel side. As they have played in their county, I know they're young, but there is quality there, and they can do damage. I see him play Killenaule this year in the West, and they give Killenaule lots of it. So, listen, but I'm saying Templederry.
Okay, well, just before we let you go on, because you've been very good with your time, your neighbours Moneygall, they're in the intermediate semi-final against Kilsheal and Kilcash. What do you reckon about Moneygall? They have a lot of good young players like Sean Kennelly, Joe Fogarty. These are common players that, you know, they've worn Tipperary colours underage, and you know, you'd be hoping that some of them can push again in the future. Yeah.
Again, I'd be fancying Moneygall here. They had a slip up during the year by Knockavilla, I think, by a few points. But listen, they have a bit of quality around the field. They need likes of Joe. Joe is a very kind of I had Joe under 15, believe it or not, but he's a real kind of to look at him, you kind of think he's really lackadaisical, but he's very effective, and he's quicker than you think, and he's a really effective guy. He's actually a guy that I wouldn't mind seeing getting a run inside for and see with the county set up, because obviously they're going to be looking around now to see what's out there. But he's definitely a guy that he's a bit like John McGrath as well as a guard. You kind of look at him and go, is he slow or what's going on? And if he's slow, why is he scoring 4-6? Do you know what I'm saying to you? Like what's going on?
Yeah, he was sort of. If you go back to the Tipp 20s, like Liam Cahill had him in the starting team at the start of that championship, and he just seemed to lose his way a small bit. Maybe his confidence started to dip when things didn't go well. But in fairness to him, he bounced back. He is that type of a player who, as he gets older and more mature, might thrive in an adult environment.
Yeah, he's very clever, and he's very good to read the game, and he's brave. Like, he's not one bit afraid. Like, he will get in and do the rough and tumble too. But listen, again, have to shout for the neighbours here. I think Moneygall will. I think they will. I think they have too much, you know. Yeah.
Okay. Well, Eoin, you've been very, very good with your time, so appreciate you joining us here, and sure, hopefully we'll chat again to you soon.
Yeah, no bother. Thanks, lads.
Cheers, Eoin.
So that was Eoin there. He was excellent preview in that. Your own thoughts on Moneygall and Kilsheal?
Yeah, I think they're both not like the other grades. Two very, very tight semi-finals. I like you have Moneygall against Kilsheal, and Kilsheal won their group well. And like in their quarter final they beat. I'm trying to come back into my head. Or they beat Ballynahinch by 10 points, which is no mean feat. Like Ballynahinch are a good, solid intermediate team. So. I think it'll be high scoring. Both teams have good quality players. It's going to be good. Like, you think Kilsheal now, you think Mark Keogh, the Maher, Paul Maher, Bill Maher, like they've a lot of good solid guys that played inter-county. You think maybe now is the time to strike. Maybe they're slightly more experienced, maybe with a few more older guys. Look, from an our perspective, I'd love to see Moneygall win. Maybe Kilsheal and might shade it. I think I went for Moneygall in the paper. I just think it's a very toss-up game, and so is mine Templederry against Kickham's in the other one. Look, from Kickham's to get back to a semi-final, considering they had 4 first-team players not part of their squad this year, just shows you maybe the dressing room is a little bit more united. That a bit more stable there at the moment. But the pressure's all on mine Templederry. They lost the final last year. They're one step away from getting back to a final again. They would have ambitions of being at least a senior B team next year. And look, they were out at Golden in the quarter final. A lot like Templederry, they're putting up big scores in their championship, and you probably fancy mine to get over the line here.
Yeah, and just a quick run over some of the junior fixtures from this coming weekend. Holy Cross Ballycahill against Nina Éire Óg. That's in the junior 8, and Dalla Galtee Rovers are against Skeheen Rinky in Care also.
Yeah. So you're looking at the winner of that Galtee Skeheen Rinky game will go into the Munster Championship. So like there's as well as the county final spot, there's a Munster club spot there. So a nice little extra incentive for both teams in that semi-final.
Certainly is. And we'll just quickly review the football championship from the weekend there. I'll read out the results and you can react on the back of that. So Loughmore-Castleiney 9 points, Kilsheal and Kilcash 1-5. I believe that was a very low score in second half there. It's obviously low scoring overall, but second half. Moyle Rovers beat Ballyperrine 2-10 to 10 points. JK Bracken saw Ardfinnan by 2 points, 2-10 to 2-8. And Clonmel Commercials had minimum fuss against Upperchurch Strumban, 120 to 1-5. So you'd imagine they'll certainly be in the conversation again.
Yeah, I saw most of the Loughmore Kilsheal game on the live stream. Very conditions played a part. It was very windy, very rainy sort of a day. A very turgid game. Is a 9 points to 1-5. I think there was only 3 points scored in the whole of the second half. I think you saw two teams that had a lot of respect for each other and had more or less cancelled each other out. And look, if you're getting to that sort of a game, you'd always trust Loughmore, the experienced team who knows how to get the job done to get it over the line, and fair play to them. And they've got it done too. And the draw was made last night, and they're drawn against Mile Rovers now in the semi-final. And I think that's a game you'd fancy Loughmore probably probably in a more open sort of football game. I think Loughmore would have a lot of quality there to beat Mile Rovers in the semi-final stage last year. So I think Loughmore have a great chance of getting to back-to-back finals. And then on the other side of the draw, you have Commercials, who 15 points to spare over Upper Shefflin. There was only 2 points in it at half time, but it just shows you when Commercials flexed their muscles. They were very, very strong, and they'll take on Brackens in a repeat of the 2019 final, which Commercials won very, very comfortably. So it'll be interesting gauge to see how much Brackens have got close to the big three. I suppose the big three would all have been Commercials, Loughmore, and Mile Rovers, with maybe Kilsheelan and Brackens trying to break into it. Brackens have probably broken into it 2 of the last 3 years. You'd fancy Commercials to win that semi-final in 2 weeks' time, but I suppose you'd love to see how have Brackens bridge the gap. To how far have they bridged the gap? Look, there's nothing to say Brackens couldn't win it in a very close contest, but you'd have to think at this stage, and it's the way it's working out. I fancy a Kiladangan Loughmore rematch in the hurling, and I think I wouldn't be against a Clonmel Loughmore rematch in the football. And considering the 2 classic finals we got in senior grade last year, I don't think anybody would be too disappointed if we were getting 2 final rematches again this year. I know as a Borris-Ileigh man, you wouldn't mind seeing Loughmore being denied in the hurling, like so.
Yeah, well, obviously, I'm looking for Borris-Ileigh to win that game. But to be fair to Loughmore, they always are good value to watch. So you have to give them credit as a club there. They're a fantastic club. And you were at, you spoke to David Power, the Tipperary football manager. I suppose in light of what happened at Special Congress at the weekend, the proposal A, that was beating up a stick in terms of like having provinces that would be like 4 groups of 8, and then also proposal B, the much vaunted, put up there as if it was like a referendum, the vote yes for change kind of stuff, which kind of stuck in my craw a little bit because it's a proposal for a restructuring of a football championship, but that got 50.6%, I think it was. It needed 60%, didn't get through. So we're going to be going back to the old system plus the Tailteann Cup, working into it next year. Maybe from we'll be back at Congress in February, and maybe they'll decide something else, which won't come in again till the following year. But what was David Power's thoughts of this? We know Tipperary won a Munster football championship in 2020, but it comes along, maybe, what was it, 80 years since the previous one. So what was his thoughts?
Oh, look, he admitted his disappointment. Like, David has long been a vocal critic of the current system, even though you'd say that Tipperary won a Munster championship in 2020. But look, that was one success in 85 years. We can't get carried away to think that there's going to be another one coming very quickly. Look, I suppose from his situation, and I suppose a lot of maybe counties, maybe lower end, Division 2, Division 3, Division 4, like outside of your National League, what have you got to play for next year? You'll have 7 National League matches in February, March into early April. Then you'll go into a provincial championship where, depending on who you draw in Tip, you Clare, Limerick, Waterford. If you draw one of them in the first round, you potentially get to a semi-final. But if you come up against Kerry, look, I don't think Tip would fear Cork if they come up against them. But like, unless Tip would get to a Munster final and win, which is highly unlikely playing summer football against Kerry, you're going straight into a Tailteann Cup next year. You don't even get a qualifier. Oh, look, you go into a Tailteann Cup and you have a potential to win it, but we don't know how good or how many teams are going to take that seriously and what carrot there is there for a Tailteann Cup for the following year. So, look, if I was at David Power, like, I'd be concerned about, is maybe somebody the likes of the Brian Fox is going to give me another year where maybe if you give them a new format of a championship along proposal B lines, that they'll be enthused to go back in there and they'll be playing more football in better weather next year. Are there maybe some of the younger guys who have been locked in for the country for the last 2 years because of COVID, will they think, am I going to commit to a football team in the league? And like and if you commit to a football team for the league and championship, you won't be allowed to have a permit to go to America for the summer. You have got to stick. So you might have a decision to make. Will I go to America, go to Australia for the summer? If that, I won't commit to the football panel because I'd be tied in there when I won't be released to go for the summer. So, like, the likes of David Power and Tipperary and a lot of maybe up to 15, 16, 20 counties might have an issue where how many guys are going to step away next year? And I think that was his argument. And it's all right for the stronger county. And I suppose I thought the eye-catching thing for me last weekend, I don't know if you thought it was a lot of the strong counties voted against it. The Dublins, it didn't come out. It hasn't come out that Dublin and Kerry did vote against it, but the likelihood was that they did. Mayo voted against it. Dublin voted against it. The Ulster counties outside of Down voted against it. And I just thought it was so disappointing that, maybe not surprising, but disappointing, a lot of strong counties more or less told a week to get lost. And I never want to hear again Kerry whinging the fact that they'll go into an All-Ireland quarter-final cold because they got no test in Munster. They had an opportunity to put 7 quality games in front of themselves for Nick and be ready for a knockout stage, and it's more or less they threw their nose at it. I never want to hear Kerry whinging again about having a soft Munster championship and then coming up and having to play Tyrone in an All-Ireland semi-final and getting their arse handed to them because they weren't ready.
Yeah,
they had an opportunity.
Not to mention exaggerating fouls to get Michael Quinlivan sent off during the year. Like, that drove me absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But I do, like, I would have liked to, I know I gave out about the way that it was like vote yes for change, this sort of nonsense. But I do think that I would have preferred to see Proposal B get through. I don't think it's perfect. I think it's highly flawed, but it's still a lot better than what we currently have. And once you do move away from the provincial system, whatever the next step is can be totally revolutionary. So, because just getting people away from this traditional look of the championship seems to be a real sticking point. But I do hope that they come back soon and try and get something through. Yeah, I think
February. I think they have to come back soon, and I really hope Larry McCarthy doesn't put this on the long finger. I think you've got to strike while the iron's hot now. I think David Power made some good suggestions. Like, whatever committee is put together, I think there's got to be. I don't think it can't just be the GPA on it. I think a couple of current players, even the likes of Podge Collins, Niall Morgan, I think a couple of current inter-county managers. I think you've got to use Proposal B as the blueprint, and you go in and you think, okay, what tweaks can be made to it to get it over the line? Do you give the 4 provincial champions a backdoor ticket to the All-Ireland Series? I'd say give it to them. Do you give the 6th place team in Division 1 a chance? Look, if that draws some of the Division 1 counties in, I give it to them. I get this thing in and start from there. And then maybe once it's in, have tweaks then maybe down the years of what's not working, what is working, what isn't working, and take it from there. I just think it's so easy for the strong football counties to think, okay, we'll always be strong. We'll always get to the knockout stages, even in the flawed current championship as we have. But like, for them to more or less discard the weak counties and condemn Sligo, Mayo, or Sligo, Waterford, Leitrim to potential annual beatings, it's great for the likes of me and you who would be hurling first people to think that hurling's going to take over the first 2 months of this tournament next year because we're going to have the big games there. But that's not to think that like the football counties who have little to play for are just going to be thrown under the bus again.
Yeah, I actually saw journalist Conor McKenna make an interesting tweet about the coverage. Let's say the Proposal B had gone through, that there would have been a crazy amount of championship Gaelic football matches on every weekend, and you're trying to cover hurling as well, especially if it goes back to the round robin. There would have been like an insane amount, and how would any media outlet be able to cover them?
Obviously, that's many media they're glad to have. That's a good problem.
It's a first world problem, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so we'll see what happens with that. We'll keep monitoring the situation. And I presume your piece is going to be in the Nina Guardian, or it's probably out there today, is it? Yeah, so make sure to pick up a copy of that. Also, the Camogie semi-finals are on this weekend. I'll run through the Senior Championship and Intermediate Championship fixtures. Cashel Kincormac's are against Drum and Inch in Borlane, Anacarty against Clownty Rossmore in Dundrum. Then in the intermediate, Shannon Rovers against Borris-Ileigh at the Camogie grounds, and Knockavilla-Kickhams against Killenaule at the Camogie grounds also. That's all on Saturday.
Yeah, I suppose strange to look at a senior semi-final and don't have Burgess O'Hara in it. So I just showed you maybe that the quality of the Tipperary Club Championship has stepped up a notch. Like for years it was Burgess here and everybody else a long way behind. Then Drum and Inch have managed to catch up, and now, in fairness to Anacarty and Killenaule and Cashel, they have managed to catch up. So we've 2 evenly matched semi-finals. Like you have an all-West battle between Anacarty and Killenaule. I suppose Killenaule have lost 2 finals in the last 3 years. So you'd think Anacarty passed them out at this stage to be disappointed. But like Anacarty have a lot of underage talent that's beginning to bear fruit. An interesting battle there. I fancy maybe Anacarty to hold sway. And then you have Cashel against Drum. You think Cashel an up-and-coming club, but Drum are so strong there. I think Drum's good. They're going for 3 in a row, and I think they just probably have too much experience for Cashel. But I think there'll be 2 very, very well-matched semi-finals in the intermediate. I think Kickens, who have come up from Junior A and have won 5 from 5, like they've settled in the intermediate like ducks to water. I think they'll have too much for Killenaule. And Shannon Rovers have been very, very solid too. I think they'll probably have too much for Borris-Ileigh as well. So if it goes to form, you're probably looking at a Kickham's Shannon Rovers final. But look, I think on their day, if Borris-Ileigh get a good solid performance out of some of their experienced players, the likes of Nicole Walsh and Stapleton, I think they'll be very, very good. So I suppose on all known form, it'll be a Kickham's Shannon Rovers final.
I'll have the fingers crossed for Borris-Ileigh, as you can imagine. Okay, that's it from Tippcast this week. Enjoy the semi-finals this weekend. Huge amount of games going on. And myself and Shane will be back again next weekend. Cheers, Shane.
Bye for now.
Welcome to Tippcast by Nanina Guardian.